Hi Bonnie, this is question 4, and this is what was my research? What's it called? Sorry, skipping ahead. Learning with peers and feedback processes. Uh, Part A of question 4. What was your process for learning with your peers or engaging in feedback like before with my class? To be honest, I'm not really one for engaging with others. I usually prefer to work on my own and not focus on what others are working on. Yet I realize I have a massive resource available to me in terms of my peers because they can give ideas that I would have never thought of. So not only does it benefit me, but also, and not only that, like, it gives me ideas that I've never thought of, but what's it called? I can give other people a different perspective, and at the end of the day, that's what really matters, perspectives, because um, it's we all have different points of views. Some are similar, some are not, and that's not necessarily wrong. And it was really gratifying to me, like being able to help them out or like get them out of a rough spot within their work, and them doing the same to me. I was really what's it called? I really did appreciate the what's it called the opportunity to help out my peers, and the help that my peers what's it called provided to me in terms of feedback. I really did appreciate that, and honestly, it wouldn't have been like I wouldn't have gone through with my essay had it not been for that. Working with my for what's it called for part B, working with my peers really helped me develop new ideas to better convey my essay. Not only that, but working together on the reading exams really helped me expand my mind in terms of answers to questions, especially on the drawing responses. Let me see if I can find it. Uh, Actually, no, it was the other one. Sorry, Bonnie. Right now, I paused the video trying to look for the submissions, but it was one of those what's it called exams that I didn't submit. It was one of the ones that write your name on it and have your partner submit it. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was what's it called like come up with answers, especially on the drawing responses. I'm not really good at drawing yet. I tried and it was just like really refreshing. What's it called? Having people come up with answers that I would have never thought of. Like I'm just like really so set in my point of view, and I think that's a problem with all of us. Especially for me, that's what I recognize that I'm really in a rut, if you will, with my thinking. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Like it's like a hills and valleys type. Sometimes I peak and I'm at my best. Sometimes I'm pretty down there in that valley, right? And I get out of it, out of my way of thinking. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. For example, when you're in the ruts, it kind of hinders your ability to think outside the box. And working with my peers pretty much expanded my mind and said, "Hey, you don't have all the answers, so sit the hell down, shut up, and listen to what the other person has to say. You'll learn something." And what's it called? It just made me think that I hadn't even thought about like seeing them come up with answers that like I hadn't even thought of. It's just like, hey, you know what? Like, there's no right answer, but there's also no wrong answer. And on top of that, there were answers that made more sense than mine, and they like what's again, and not only that, like they related both to what the questions you were asking, and on top of that, they I could relate to them. I could relate to those answers that they were giving, and it's just to me, it's like, wow, I hadn't thought of that, and it's just like it was a slap in the face towards my ego. I will admit that, but it was also a surprise to me to see that what's it called? That sounds narcissistic, right? Saying as like as if I have all the answers, but but yeah, it's like hey, like that. There was a fresh new take for me, and I was like, oh damn, okay, that I can actually what's it called? There are more answers than just mine out there. Like not everybody has to. There's more ways of thinking than mine, and that's not necessarily bad. That's actually a pretty good like, way of it. Like I'm grateful that that exists. Again, like what's it called? The biggest one I have of what's it called? This is for part C and part B. Um, examples that I like identify what I'm trying to convey. I mean, the reading exams. That's literally the biggest one. For example, here I had Tom and Fritz. What's it called? Come up with their answers and how they related to what's it called each one was. And the funny thing was, it was about perspective, and yet I was so stuck on my perspective that I didn't think to say, hey, you know what? There's others' perspectives, and everybody else has their own perspective. Like everybody else has their own opinion, their own idea on how they relate to a certain. For example, here it was unflattening to a certain book, journal, idea, quote, and it was pretty refreshing. And honestly, this is my biggest example that I can show. Um, there are like it made me see that there are multiple points of views and multiple answers to each question, and there's no right answer when it comes to perspective. It's just how everybody sees it, and maybe you can't relate to it, but just because you can't relate to it doesn't mean that you're right and they're wrong. If anything, it makes you like it should encourage you to say, hey, you know what? Why can't I relate to it? Let me try to find that missing link. What's it called? That missing perspective that is that I just don't have that, but they do. I'm like, okay, where did you get that? You know, I want to talk to you now to find out, hey, like, how did you get to that point? That's interesting now. How am I going to apply this in a work or future scenario? In a future work or learning situation, sorry. Just listening to my peers pretty much. Like, hey, you know what? Especially as an engineer, that's what I want to be. Hopefully I do get my degree right. It's pretty tough. But yeah, it's like listening to your peers. Maybe they have a fresh new take, maybe they don't, right? But at the end of the day, the input that they give you and the like, what's it called, their point of view. Maybe you're just like so. For example, how I was talking about ruts that I fall into. Like maybe I become so absorbed in my work that I can't think outside of the box anymore. I need a different perspective to come and work in with me and say, hey, you know what? Have you tried this? Or hey, you know what? Have you like tweaked this on your design maybe and like it'll work better? Or have you tried what's it called? Just in general of listening to other people because you don't know what they might bring to the table, and that's something that like what's it called? I really like. I it was showcased to me this semester. Like you don't know what other people are bringing to the table. You don't have all the answers. And other people, they might not have all the answers either, but they might have that one that's just right for you. If you choose to listen to them, and that's my takeaway from, in terms of my peers, and that's how I can apply it to a future learning or work scenario. Thank you, Bonnie.